All right, we are live again. Ryan Kostecka, I don't know if you saw that coming. I don't think I did. Final score 143 to 101. Was that the final?
Yeah.
That can't really be the final, can it?
It
Timberwolves.
was.
I mean, it almost felt too easy, even though I know that wasn't easy. I know that was, hard earned. They had to do that from the start, but I don't think anybody had 42-point blowout on their bingo card, even if we might have expected them to win game 3.
Yeah. I think you said perfectly. We expected them to win game 3, but definitely not in that manner. I mean, I'm trying to do the math. It's late, it feels like, but do they lead the series now in point differential?
Yeah, by 1. I just pointed out by 1.
Okay, there you go. Thank you.
They were minus 41 going in, and now they were plus 42 in the game. So it doesn't get you anywhere. This isn't like the old CBA where you win on quarters, but my goodness, everything was clicking from the start. Ant with a massive first quarter.
Yeah.
Some key adjustments I thought from Chris Finch, which we'll get to here in a bit. I thought DiVincenzo's minutes were down a little bit. You had the Terrence Shannon Jr. shift early on that really got them going, but it almost just felt a night that was more about vibes and making a statement than it was about one specific thing or player.
I think it was kind of like we talked about at the end of game 2. The adjustments Finch had to make, he made them tonight. I mean, you could tell instantly, right away, both Randall and Ant felt so much more comfortable out there on the court together. It seemed like they kind of figured something out the way OKC played defense on the last 2 games, but instantly they felt better. They looked more comfortable. Everything they did today had that little bit more intensity. It was done with assertiveness. It's what you expected from a game 3, but it's really what you want to see from your 2 stars. And then, like I said, they mix things up, in the personnel as far as the rotation goes. I thought, Rudy ended up playing 28, but actually his minutes, it seemed like I think he came out a couple minutes earlier than usual. They played more Nas. They went with that Nas and Julius Randle size, which is my favorite line they have. I saw there were definitely little tweaks that Chris Finch made, which I thought was very impressive tonight that worked. I'm pretty sure, and I hope someone asked the question, I think Terrence Shannon Jr. was actually in the rotation. I'm curious if he was going to be in the rotation actually tonight, or if Finch was going to stick to 8-man, because the vibe I got and the way Terrence played said he knew he was going to play.
Yeah, I think so. And he put him in at the perfect time. He put him in when Ant was on the bench, but they were up. It was still pretty comfortable. So if it was a bad stint, it wasn't going to be the end of the world. But he came in when they needed offense, and I think he can certainly play with Ant and has during the season. But his best minutes are probably going to come when he has to score, and that's largely going to be when Ant's not on the floor. So that was a great moment for him when he had 9 points in that first shift, I think, because he had a couple. He had an and one, some free throws, getting some mid range going, and that's really like what they've been desperately lacking in this series is like someone to step up from a bench spot and get him that. Now, obviously, the other guys did really well from the bench too, like the guys that we've been talking about, Naz Reid, Dante DiVincenzo, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. They were combined 6 of 9 from 3-point range tonight when they hadn't been doing anything in the series. So it wasn't like he had to pull that lever because those other guys weren't contributing tonight. But I think playing him takes some of the pressure off of DiVincenzo, takes some of the pressure off of gives them a fourth option, someone who can score off the bench, took a little pressure off those guys. So I thought it was a good, well-timed move right there.
I agree. You said it perfectly. It was a very well-timed move. I'm really impressed the way, Terrence Shannon Jr. came in tonight. I mean, first off, great guy. He, I met him in the building we live in, and he's so nice on my son's career. So, I'm so happy for him just, with where he thought he was going to be, even before we talked about before the Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo trade. He was here. He was part of the team. He thought he was going to get legit, minutes as a rookie. He really did. He projected as that secondary score that they were lacking. And the season didn't go his way the way he was hoping, but to stay plugged in and to really seize your moment, really proud, really impressed by the rookie there. But yeah, the guys just seemed more comfortable tonight. And I think the biggest thing for me is that a lot of the shots they took to build this lead were the same exact shots they got in games 1 and 2. That was the biggest thing to me, I think. And yes, I don't think OKC came out with as much focus as they needed to. They're maybe a half second behind, which in the playoffs is everything. But for the most part, the Wolves, stuck to their offense. A lot of the looks they got tonight, they knocked down, are ones they missed in games 1 and 2. So I think that's very telling that the offense can succeed. It just depends on the role players and the guys shooting them. And tonight at work, returning home, the comfort of sleeping in your own bed, getting back to your routine, can't be said enough. But it's a good win. It was. I mean, their
Yeah.
season on the line. Let's call it like it is. Season on the line, and you come out with that focus. That's what you want to see.
And I think if they'd won by 15, I think we'd be saying the same thing. But when you win by 42, it hits a little different. Like, I know it counts one no matter what, but I gotta think they planted a little extra doubt in Oklahoma City's mind by the way they did this. Now, that doesn't mean Oklahoma City doesn't come out look entirely different in game 4. And we'll get to game 4 in a bit, because that's what everybody's asking me about. Hey, nice, but let's do it again, kind of thing. And I think that was kind of Julius Randle. They interviewed him right at the end of the third quarter when it was pretty clear his night was done. He was basically like, this is great. We got to finish this game off, and then it's just one. We got to keep rolling, because they know, this game, it's almost expected sometimes that you go home down 2-0, you're going to be desperate. You might win game 3. That doesn't make it a series yet. But when you win by 42, it does feel a little bit different.
Yes. It does, and like I said at the end of the podcast at the game 2, is that the series never really begins until a road team wins a game. And tonight the Wolves, made sure there was no doubt of that. I think he's perfectly. I don't think, no matter what the result of what tonight was going to be, whether it's a 1-point win or 42-point win, I don't think it's going to put any fear into OKC by any means. I think they're really grounded and stabilized in who they are, and they believe that. But what I think it does on the flip side, though, is it really gives the Wolves a lot of belief and a lot of confidence. And especially in the sense where Finch made the small tweaks that we talked about that he needed to make, but it was the same offense they ran. The guys who were missing shots made the shots. So it just gives this team more confidence that, hey, we can do this. We can hit these shots in these moments when it matters most. We can tweak up our intensity a little bit. We can, be focused a little more, communicate. Rotations are a little bit crisper. This is what you wanted to see. So the fact that you won by this much, it's one thing to play an incredible game and barely win. I think that's might be kind of the toughest pill to swallow. But this was a game you left no doubt in a game that it's a playoff. So whether OKC really won or not, I mean, it's a game that it's a playoffs. You play hard, you play to win. So that's the biggest thing for them. I don't think it scares OKC by any means, but what it does is it gives this Wolves team a lot more confidence that they're trending in the right direction and they can do this.
Shea with 14. I think they flashed. That was a season low. He had a minus 32. Only 4 free throws, but whenever he went to the line, the Target Center faithful were chanting "free throw merchant." That was beautiful. So everybody plugged into that, and I thought the energy from the start was important, because I've been in Target Center. I wasn't there tonight, but I've been there. I will be there. I've been at games where there's an expectation, but then things start to turn, and this is a fan base that has seen a lot of things go wrong. This is a sports market that has seen a lot of things go wrong. So when they get up double digits fast and don't lay off the gas at all for pretty much the whole game, maybe a little small lapse at the start of the third quarter, but then they blew that thing right back past 30 right again after that. That's important, because they feed off the crowd feeds off of them, but it works both ways. This is a scarred sports fan base. If you give them any reason to doubt, they will express that energy. But if you give them reason to hope, they will express that energy. So I thought that was important tonight in particular.
It was. I mean, getting off to a quick start and getting this crowd not just engaged but fully engaged, it was huge. You feed off the crowd. I mean, I've been to every single home game so far this year. I was there tonight. Sick little one, so you got to take care of them. But no, it's. I remember being there at the end of the Warriors series, game 1, when the Warriors got that win. There was this sense of the crowd where I was like, is this really going to happen? Yes, we knew stuff was hurt, but no one knew the extent of it. But there was this, oh my gosh, it's really going to happen. But this crowd is phenomenal. I mean, the energy they can provide, it's just, the team just talked about it before. They feed off of it. And keeping them engaged early on, I think, was huge. That's what you want your superstar to do. I thought Ant, gambles defensively. He looked phenomenal out there.
Yeah.
I mean, in the first quarter, he was not just on offense, but defensively as well. That's where I think they set the tone. And that was the message that needed to happen. So it's one thing you're going to hit shots. It's the ebb and flow game. We understand that, but defense travels. Defense wins champs. When people say defense wins champions, because the only thing guaranteed to travel is your defense. Yeah. So that was big tonight. That I thought they set the tone on that end of the court. It clearly fed their offense, but that's what really got the crowd going.
Lynn on X says points in the paint and 30
Huge.
assists. And she also says controlled the glass too. Barely heard from Hartenstein and Holmgren, which is true. I mean, this was a game where like everything they wanted to do worked.
Yes.
I mean, they shot 20 of 40 from 3-point range. We can talk about the shooting, but Lynn is right. Points in the paint were significant, and 30 assists meant they were making the right play, and they were knocking down the shot after making the right play.
I think we've talked about this previously again. I think they did a really good job of the first two games of maybe getting their feet into the paint and kicking out. But I think what happened is they got too comfortable doing that. And they could get their feet in the paint, but they weren't doing it with the purpose of scoring.
Right.
Doing it with the purpose of, kicking out to threes. And I think OKC Fed, kind of noticed that, and they weren't, shying off shooters as much as they expected. This game, they attacked with a purpose. I mean, those kickouts to three came at the very last second. There was nothing was premeditated, it felt like. I mean, they attacked the rim. They wanted to get every bucket at the rim, and I thought that was huge for them. So the fact that they got the points to paint, that's got to be a big factor for them. They have to win that battle. They have to win that battle, and they have to win the rebounding battle to have a chance. The assists will come, obviously. I mean, that just comes with shot making and just making the ball move. But the fact that I love the way they attack on offense tonight, that was key. Everything was done with a purpose.
Yeah.
So it was good to see. It's something that was needed to change.
Well, they played downhill and they played fast, and defensively, I thought Gobert had more liberty to challenge the mid range. I can't remember if it was second quarter or third quarter, blocked a shot. I think it was Jalen Williams.
Williams, he blocked it.
He blocked his shot. It's like we weren't seeing that. He was dropping a lot more. I think he was still in a lot of drops sometimes, but it felt like it was slightly more aggressive in that they didn't really get that mid range going. They didn't really have to they blitzed, Shea a little bit, but they didn't really have to deviate too much from the script aside from everybody be a half step faster on your rotations and get back to being kind of the swarming, just more focused defense that they have been.
I thought Gobert did a great job defensive tonight. I thought he showed more than he's done in the past two games, and then the fact that he showed enough was just that another extra half second to force the dribble, the ball handler to kind of take that step back, allow the guy to get over the screen and make it. So I thought his ability to show tonight was very big. He also was very comfortable when the Thunder got into the paint. He was very comfortable switching out onto them. Does that make sense? Where he wouldn't, previously he would just kind of, even when they got into the paint, he would just show. And not, I thought he did a much better job tonight of just actually switching on and full on taking that defender. So I mean, like you said, the Jalen Williams block, Jalen Williams was shocked that Gobert was still there. So that's really good to see. I mean, it's small tweaks like that. And I think that's the best version of Rudy for this, what you need this series, is that version to switch like that when needed.
Let's get to one more before we shift to the game 4 questions. Ant VP says, we should have just done this in games 1 and 2. I mean, it does, people have some people joking, and joking on social media, you should make the whole plane out of game 3. Like, it's true. Like, where was this in the first 2 games? Some of it's the matter of desperation, comforts of home, but they did look like an entirely different team to a certain degree. Making shots will help you feel better. A lot of things will make you feel better. A lot of things will make you have to play harder, faster, whatever. Like, they didn't have the same desperation in games 1 and 2. A little surprising they didn't have the same desperation and energy in game 2 after losing game 1. But it is, is it a matter of, okay, when their backs were against the wall, they found it, or do you still question, like, how come they couldn't have been at least somewhere between where they were tonight and where they were in Oklahoma City in those first 2 games?
I agree. I mean, it's like even just being, somewhere in between would have made a big difference. The energy and the focus was different tonight. That's just the way it was. It sounds weird to say, but it felt like games 1 and 2, they were almost starstruck a little bit, or just kind of like wide-eyed, where it just felt like they were, I don't know, they've been there before, but they didn't feel like they'd been there before.
Right.
And so this time they just felt much more comfortable, and it was almost like, this style of play is what got us here. This is what we're going to do. Right. And it was just a much more focused, very attentive to detail specific game plan tonight, and they executed very well. I do want to say I'm curious what's going to happen in game 4, especially if OKC, which we expect to really come out and, OKC knows you just got to split. Like every road team knows you got to split the first 2.
Right. And if they win game 4, this is all for naught. This is basically heading towards a gentleman's sweep. Let's get to I'm going to run through a lot of the game 4 stuff, because Roger says only as good as you play again Monday. That was on X. Not Mark says Finch acquitted himself really well tonight, pushed all the right buttons. Can't wait for the first clutch time of the series, which is a good point. He says Game 4 ? On that. Skolny says the home team winning Game 3 down 0-2 is almost expected. If they win Game 4, then it's a real series. I think we're seeing some.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing some Wolves fans happy with the win tonight, maybe surprised with the margin, but still saying, "Hey, you know what? They're being realistic. They're saying that nothing exactly proven or won besides a game here tonight. Game 4 really decides whether or not this is a series or whether this is just a nice, pleasant diversion on the way to what could be a 5-gamer."
It's smart fan base. It's a really, really smart fan base. They understand, it's
right. They get it.
Most fan bases are like, hey, we won by 42. We're gonna win the series. It's over.
Right. It's easy. We got them now. We got them right where we want them now. Yeah.
It's an impressive fan base. They understand. They know what they're talking about. I mean, Game 4 is the most important game in the series, and as it often is for most series, it's a kind of the swing one in a sense. I do think that OKC is going to be much more comfortable coming out, and that's going to be the one they're going to play to win. The clutch minutes, that was a really good question, and I'm super curious how that's
because we really haven't had that yet. We haven't had that yet in the series.
It's anyone's guess at this point. The Wolves have been incredibly clutch in the postseason, while Shea might be one of the clutchest players in the NBA. So it's really – I'm not sure who my theoretical money would be on if that was the case, but the clutch minutes, I can't wait. I think Game 4 is going to be really close. I think Game 4 is going to be a dogfight, back and forth, just two teams just throwing haymakers at each other, and I think we're going to get clutch minutes, and I really don't know who's going to win those.
No, and I agree. I think Game 4 could be a classic, and I really do. I think the comment was right. Like if the Wolves can carry some of this forward and they're showing Shea on the bench, in the fourth, mic'd up, talking about like basically everything went against Oklahoma City tonight. The Wolves were making all their shots. OKC had turnovers early. All the things that they didn't want to do, they did. They got into a hole, and then Ant was just tremendous. Like all the things that you would not want in a Game 3 road game. And he's basically like, we could have done all these other things, and then it just wasn't our night. We might have just lost this game anyway. Game 4 has an entirely different texture to it, and I think
it does now.
If the Wolves win this game, and yes, no road team would still have won a game yet, that sets up a hellacious potential Game 5 because then Oklahoma City is like staggering a little bit. They've lost 2 in a row. Yeah, they're going home, but they're like, oh man,
now they feel the pressure.
We just got beat by 42, and whatever happens Monday. And the Wolves are like, okay, we can do this now. Yeah. So they've changed the narrative of the series to a degree. Not just by winning this game, but how they won it. But Game 4 I feel like Game 4 is going to be off the charts. I feel like this is going to be the game of the series.
I agree as well, and I think the Wolves understand that. I'd be really curious because, OKC they breezed through Memphis with the sweep. That was no big deal. Yes, they won. It took Denver to 7 games. They won Game 7. Very impressive. But even then, I felt like for OKC there was no shame if you lose to Nikola Jokic and the Nuggets the way they were playing. There's no shame in that, right? So you're almost playing with like nothing to lose. I think there's definitely more to lose because they were clearly the favorites in this series.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if they get to 2-2. Let's say Minnesota wins a game in the clutch. So they pulled out their first clutch game. 2-2 going back. It'd be really interesting to see what kind of OKC team you get. This is a team that, as we know in the past, presses a lot. Mm-hmm. They press a lot, and all of a sudden they start struggling a little bit. Yeah. While the Wolves did they find something? And I think that's the biggest thing for Game 4. Did the Wolves find something tonight, or is it kind of like Shea said, an anomaly where you're most likely going to lose no matter what?
Well, and it's interesting. Like pregame, OKC was 2.5-point favorites. ESPN's data analytics was like 67% chance the Thunder win this game, even though it's a Game 3, even though you've got the home crowd, the desperation factor in play. So I think even the crew that was calling this game was stunned by it. I don't think they saw this coming.
No one did.
We couldn't have seen this level coming. I don't think them winning this game is a surprise, but I feel so much different about this series right now than I did 3 hours ago, because I was like, oh man, this doesn't feel good. The way the first 2 games went, you wondered if they could stay on the same level as Oklahoma City, get to that level. When you beat them by 42, you put a whole bunch of scenarios in play.
You really do. It opens up the eyes of everyone, opens up the eyes of OKC, and it just gives you that extra confidence. And what it does is that crowd is going to be completely reinvigorated.
Yep.
I mean, it's one thing if you, like I said, if you play really well and you maybe win by 1 or 2 and OKC play terrible, the crowd would be like, "Man, we know what's coming." But you win by 42 and you handle business the way you did, that shocked everyone. So even the announcers were shocked by it.
Yeah.
It's a different energy from the crowd. It's a different belief in yourself
100%.
as well.
100%.
So, oh, man.
One other thing it guarantees is that Wednesday Game 5 will be back at Modest Brewing, too. That was not guaranteed if these two home games were in the loss column, but we are guaranteed of a Game 5. First, Game 4 will be coming to you live after that game as well on Monday. That one at Target Center, but Game 5 down at Modest Brewing. Come check us out. Join the party. If it's 2-2, that's going to be off the charts. Even if it's 3-1, it's going to be a desperation kind of effort. So that'll be fun. Ryan, appreciate it as always. Thanks, everybody, for the great questions and for following along. We'll see you back here again on Monday.